Harriet Jacobs' Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl was considered fiction for so many years, written by possibly a white woman. And the dismissal of Black women's testimony and the archival research that Jean Fagan Yellen and others put into making sure that the facts were corroborated says so much about the ways in which Black women's testimony and experiences are treated as fiction, how much Black women are not believed. This comes up, for example, in the treatment of our bodies today, right, in medical settings where anti-Black misogyny continues to plague the community that I belong to. This text is also beautifully written, full of irony, full of multiple layers, speaking to multiple audiences all at once. And so there's very little about this book that I don't love, and I've taught it hundreds of times. And listening to the ways in which she says, I have not exaggerated, but this falls far short of the facts, allows us to have an imperative to look for what is undertold, to what she is not exactly saying in the text itself, even though we know she's not exaggerated the facts. So she's giving us a definition of what truth means for Black women who are not believed, that you can't exaggerate, but you're also allowed to undertell something. And in fact, sometimes you have to be subtle and nuanced and not tell the whole truth in order to be believed. So it's sophisticated conceptually, theoretically, narratively, and it's gorgeously written. Reader, be assured this narrative is no fiction. I am aware that some of my adventures may seem incredible, but they are nevertheless strictly true. I have not exaggerated the wrongs inflicted by slavery. On the contrary, my descriptions fall far short of the facts. I've concealed the names of places and given persons fictitious names. I had no motive for secrecy on my own account, but I deemed it kind and considerate toward others to pursue this course. I wish I were more competent to the task I have undertaken, but I trust my readers will excuse deficiencies in consideration of circumstances. I was born and reared in slavery, and I remained in a slave state 27 years. Since I have been at the North, it has been necessary for me to work diligently for my own support and the education of my children. This has not left me much leisure to make up for the loss of early opportunities to improve myself, and it has compelled me to write these pages at irregular intervals whenever I could snatch an hour from household duties. What I'd like students to take away from this text is to read deeply in multiple layers, to listen to the voices of those whose voices are not sanctioned and who are also told to be quiet by larger society and by those who have power. When I first arrived in Philadelphia, Bishop Payne advised me to publish a sketch of my life, and I told him I was altogether incompetent to such an undertaking. Though I have improved my mind somewhat since that time, I still remain of the same opinion. But I trust my motives will excuse what might otherwise seem presumptuous. I have not written my experiences in order to attract attention to myself. On the contrary, it would have been more pleasant to me to have been silent about my own history. Neither do I care to excite sympathy for my own sufferings. But I do earnestly desire to arouse the women of the North to a realizing sense of the condition of 2 millions of women at the South, still in bondage, suffering what I suffered, and most of them far worse. I want to add my testimony to that of abler pens to convince the people of the free states what slavery really is. Only by experience can anyone realize how deep and dark and foul is that pit of abominations. May the blessing of God rest on this imperfect effort in behalf of my persecuted people. The last thing I would say about incidents in the life of a slave girl and Harriet Jacobs and Black women's writing in general is that free people and human people tell their stories. And so to believe that people haven't written, which is what we believed for so many years about Black women narrators of enslavement, is to suggest, in fact, that they're not human. So that if we go and look for the writing, we will find it. If we go to look for the infrastructure that Black women created, we will find it. If we go to look for the poetry, we will find it. The question is, where do we look? The question is, do we look in collaboration? The question is, do we look long enough to honor what they left us and the legacies that we've inherited from them?